Three, two, here we are on the air. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in to Colexit Radio Mach 2.0. You are listening to me, Sue Hirsch, again, with Matt Owen again. And we would like to tell you today a little bit about Indigenous Peoples Day, which is going to be happening very soon on October 8th on Alcatraz Island, right here in San Francisco. Now, this is going to be great fun. Matt, do you know anything about it?
Well, I know they're also doing, the city of Los Angeles, right out in front of City Hall, is the first anniversary of their recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day. And there's going to be a big celebration at Alcatraz. A lot of the folks who did the original occupation of Alcatraz in the early 70s are going to be there. So it will be quite a gathering.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, folks, I actually added this event to my page in Facebook, and you can just Google it or find it pretty much anywhere in Facebook. There is a woman, Laneda Warjack. I admire her very much. You should also look her up on Facebook because she is helping with this event in a big way. Laneda Warjack, capital L-A, capital N-A-D-A. And new name, her last name is capital W-A-R-J-A-C-K, Laneda Warjack. She's a very interesting woman. You should really check her out and look for this event under her name or my name if you have any trouble finding her. I'm Sue Hirsch of Colexit Radio Mach 2.0, and look also, please, for my newsletter that comes out through CalConCon, or California Calls for a Constitutional Convention, which is why we're here doing this radio show. We want to inform people. We don't want to bamboozle you or make you think our way or cajole you or try and twist your arm. We're here to put out information about a better way of doing things, and we are always growing and improving our organization and our website, and we're growing into something new and better right now that includes and involves to a large extent our indigenous population that was here before us, because we want to have a better relationship with them and to do better by them than the United States has ever done, because the United States has only ever broken treaties with these people and treated them really, really badly. California can be better than that, and it is therefore our sacred duty to be better, which is ever and always my motto in pretty much every blog post that I write, that we can do better and therefore we must as a budding nation of California. Matt, I know that was a lot that I just said. Did you have anything to add?
Well, we and the indigenous nations share a common problem. We are what are known as unrecognized countries. Our sovereignty is not recognized. I was just reading and rebroadcasting a post from an Irish VDS site about Palestinian kids being sent home, wherever that is, or however that is, because their visas have been revoked. They're the children of the representatives of the PLO in the U.S., whose office was just shut down by John Bolton. So the degree of recognition that was extended has been revoked. And it was from an Irish BDS site. Ireland was once itself an unrecognized country. They had to fight for their recognition. We have to fight for ours, our international recognition. And guess what? The indigenous nations have to fight for theirs. So if we can get the indigenous nations in California, on board with our independence movement, it will be simultaneously a movement to recover their sovereignty so that they can send their diplomatic representatives around the world the way the Palestinians have, the way the Catalans have. And, we can look to Ireland to see that it is doable. Okay, Ireland is now an internationally recognized country. At the beginning of the 20th century, it wasn't. They had to fight for that, and they did. So do we.
And how do we do that? Where do we start? The simplest and first most step.
Well, something that I started doing was to develop an office of an honorary consul and contact my counterparts in other consulates in California, and also the indigenous nations themselves directly. Okay, to encourage them to send honorary consuls around to do the same thing I'm doing. And I put out the word, was anybody interested in doing the same work in the North? And Bob Timlin, who is of Irish extraction himself, in fact, dual Irish U.S. citizenship, is now doing the same thing in Northern California. So we're basically arguing that even before our formal independence, we're already to start acting independently. This is why when the U.S. withdrew from the climate change accords, California Governor Jerry Brown contacted the Chinese directly in a sovereign capacity and said, guess what? We're not pulling out. In fact, we're fortifying. We're going to try to counter the trade war that the U.S. has declared on China. Do everything we can to do that. Because guess what? A lot of our renewable energy resources are Chinese resources. We have our own too that we're developing. But, we don't intend to do without the Chinese resources. So we're already beginning to act independently. And so the idea is to get other recognized governments to recognize our independence.
Right.
To support our independence.
So we reach out to the other governments and say, hey, you know what? We're not with them.
Right, we're not with them. Exactly.
We're not with stupid over there.
Right. And one of the strongest outreaches is to the other unrecognized countries. Okay. Reaching out to the Palestinians, to the Catalans, to the Scots, and of course to our own indigenous nations, which are also unrecognized countries, unrecognized nations. And so we're building a coalition of unrecognized nations and saying, what's wrong with this picture?
Yeah, there's strength in numbers. We've always known that. It's an old saw, and it is an old expression because we've always known that there's strength in numbers. And Hillary tried to tell us this. She tried to tell us we're stronger together. And Trump, as he was campaigning, never said anything like that. He always said, "I'm going to take care of this," and he cut us out. And he was showing us at that time exactly who he was, that he was willing to cut us out of the solutions and out of the democratic process. And so that is what he's done ever since.
But I always love it when somebody tries to drown you, then takes you out of the water and says, we're stronger together.
Yeah.
That's not what we're trying to do. We're definitely not following Hillary's model. We may follow her motto, but not her model. Cool.
Exactly right. Well, we can do that as a new nation. We will be able to pick and choose our own friends, and and yes, as a new nation, we have to remember that we're going to be stronger together with other nations of unrecognized people. And no, I don't suggest that we follow any model that has come out of the birth of the United States, because that is a narrative that was programmed into us by rich white male landowners. They could only be rich white males in order to own land and to vote. And they didn't want to share their power, because what powerful person ever wants to share power?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Power is not altruistic.
Yeah. And we live in a system in which the overwhelming majority has to sell power for paychecks to that tiny, tiny minority.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is something, if that doesn't change, that's what Michael or James Connolly said about the Irish Republic, that if that didn't change, he could hoist the green flag over Dublin Castle tomorrow, all down the Union Jack, and nothing would change for the average Irishman. Okay, Irish women, they wouldn't see it. It would be a great moment that was hollow unless that changed. I'm looking very carefully at the situation just across the border with the new Morenista government. The Morena party is now the governing party there. Mm-hmm. AMLO is now president. So I'm looking to see if that's going to bring any substantial changes or not. And I'm not the only one. Even before, AMLO has arrived in the office, the new Mexican Congress is being sworn in. And one of AMLO's initiatives is this Mayan Railway, which isn't really his initiative. It's a revival of an old priista proposal called the Eje Transistémico. It's a railway that's supposed to cut across the Isthmus of Tehuantepec. And they're looking at that, I'm looking at that, and it's like, we've seen this before. This is not a new project. It's just been rebranded a Maya project, but it cuts across Maya land. It most certainly does. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. And as I had said last week to the Morenistas, how is this different from the Chepe, which cuts across Harari land, which is this railway which runs from Chihuahua to the Pacific, or for that matter, the Dakota Access Pipeline? Okay, how is this not creating another Bestia? That infamous railway that runs from the Guatemalan border that's, millions and millions of Central Americans have been hoboing on to get away from that horrible situation, only to run into the Mexican migra. Mm-hmm. And also being, preyed upon, by MS-13, who's riding freight with them, and, preying upon them. Mm-hmm. So how is this going to be different from any of those? You say it's going to be, you want it to be, but you never asked the Mayans who are still living there if they want another railway cutting across their land, did you? Okay, so I'm conveying the concerns of the Zapatista bases, to the Morenistas. I did that last week. And this is an example of the fighting diplomacy we can undertake, because I am technically what is known as a disinterested party. I am neither Morenista nor am I Zapatista. I've acted in support of both, but now this comes up and I can say, hey, I'm talking to the Morenistas, expressing as best I can Zapatista concerns, and I can do the reverse. I can say, okay, I can express your concerns in this thing, and, let's talk.
So basically you're mediating.
Yeah, mediating between the Morenistas and Zapatistas.
And
it's an interesting party.
And are you doing that right now?
Well, I started the dialogue on the Morenista side. I need to let the Zapatistas know in the CNE, the National Indigenous Congress, know not only uh, of these efforts, but also of our proposal to address our concerns with our indigenous people. Okay, because we have something in common.